So in the family meetings, I learned more about me. In the family meetings, I learned more about them. In the family meetings, we became a stronger unit in the middle of the chaos that was still swirling around us. So hey now, how is everybody doing? Welcome to Alert Diaries with Tanya E. Hood, because divorce is difficult for everyone, and especially our children. So creating environments that support them along the journey is something that I want to encourage you to do. And when I started walking through that, I found 4 pillars that was really helpful and supportive for me to get my babies whole. So love is already one of the pillars that you have. But how sometimes paying attention to what the little person or the adult person now, for some of us, are looking for. When we love the way we think others want to be loved. I want to challenge you to consider that how a person receives that love. Because when I was going through the chaos of my divorce, the ex, he was real good with the boys. So for our kids, he was the fun dad. He played all the time. He did the great things. And he sort of had this way of, I don't know, they seem to have their own little personal language that they talk to each other about. I didn't understand it. And it confused the mess out of me. But when a divorce occurred, I was now stuck with a 4-year-old and a 10-year-old looking at me like, why are we stuck with her? Because in the household, I was mostly the disciplinarian. So if you find yourself in a position where your roles for your children are switching because now they have to. There's things that's changing for you. There's stuff that's going to be different for you and different for them. Now, I knew both my babies, and I played with my sons, but my play was always an educational play because on top of everything else, I'm an electrical engineer by discipline, project manager by trade. My natural, logical, analytical mind sort of thinks in growth, development, and strategy. So even in the playtime with the boys, it was, okay, what's the best way I can make learning your alphabets fun? How can I make what we have to do cleaning up the house? Because by the time I got home from work and got home from them with school, you still got to fix dinner. You still got to do the other things. So how do we get this done and make it fun? So I created environments like that. So that's the thing that I did a lot with the boys. So after the divorce, they didn't have the fun dad some more. I still sort of stayed in the role that I had already had for several years, and it wasn't supportive because at that point, my kids didn't feel like they were loved. They didn't feel like this was really working for them. And in their mind, the sun, moon, and stars, that's how I felt like they felt about their father, was gone, and they left with me. So if you find yourself in that position, love, you know you love your babies. You know you love them because you're doing everything in your heart and everything in your soul to keep them safe, to keep them whole, keep the lights on, keep the food on. Those in your mind for some things is the basics. If you do that enough, somewhere in between it, they feel like they're loved. That was my impression. But it was also given to me because it's a little bit of how I was raised. Somewhere in between there, as I'm making certain that you have what you need, that you're cared for, you will feel loved. But everybody has a different love language. And so you have to figure out what that child feels as love. My youngest one needed me to sit with him a little bit longer. I always read books with my babies before they went to bed. So in our reading time, I kept the reading time, sort of the 30-minute reading time that I had previously. But then I learned he needed more time from me. So I had to redesignate what love meant in my mind, so that I can form the bond of love that I knew I wanted my babies to feel and have from me. Another one of the pillars that I was working with is keeping a safe environment. When we are walking through putting together environments, I had to decide how to connect with the children a little bit more. I was there, but I was always doing sort of the cleaning and the prepping and the getting stuff together because it's kind of the role that we fell into. So I had a peripheral view of various things that my children were doing, but I never sat down to do enough of the specifics. So to help me get inside of the specifics of their hearts, the specifics of their souls, the specifics of what they needed from me now, I created family meetings. Those family meetings was a space where they can say what they wanted to say to keep them in a position where they don't feel like they're going to get repercussions, especially for the oldest one, because all he knew was a two-parent household that he was raised in, and he didn't have many friends of his that had their parents together. So in his mind now, he's like everybody else, and it didn't feel good, and he didn't want to be there. So his little mini moments of aggression, I didn't know what to do with, because I had not yet created a space that he felt safe enough to share what he was walking through. So that's where I created the family meeting. In the family meeting, anybody could call it, including the 4-year-old. The family meeting was a designated time. I made certain I set aside a minimum of 1 hour because I had to prepare myself. So as you're preparing things for your children, there's some adjustments that you're going to have to make as well. I had to prepare myself to be certain that I was in one place, not thinking about what I need to cook later, not thinking about what I need to clean, whatever else we need to do later. I had to be present for that time because they were already getting tossed around by everything else that was happening in life. So if there was a family meeting called, I knew it was one meeting. Because I am the parent, I had an opportunity to say, if the little one said, Mom, we need to meet, I could say, let's give mommy needs 30 minutes. And I had a face clock. So they knew what 30 minutes looked like. So that way they don't ask me every 30 seconds, is it time yet? Is it time yet? Put measures that support you while you work on supporting them. And so when he called it, I knew whatever I was going to do, I had to make certain I set aside that time to be present. In that family meeting, they can say what they needed to say. You have to set the ground rules initially. They knew, because we had that very first meeting, I let them know we can do this whenever you want. So they had an idea of the time period. You can say what you want with respect, because if you are feeling some type of way, I don't want you to suppress your feelings, but you've got to say it in a way that's still respectful, because you still have to teach your children how to deal with their emotions in a way that is healthy. They had to get it out, but there's still got to be some rules involved with that. The next thing I let them know is, if you don't even want to talk, then we can use the time to just sit and figure it out together. Because letting your babies know that you're going through something new too. Often as parents, we like to have our children believe that we have everything covered. We know everything. We got it all together. You pretty much do, and you will. But they also need to see the human part of you. They also need to recognize that even if I don't know step by step, moment by moment, because the nerd in me needed all of that. But these moments taught me I cannot have a definitive step-by-step plan and think it's going to work when I'm dealing with somebody else's emotional warfare. And your babies are going to try to walk through the plans that you create, the things that you want to do. But if they're not equipped, if you don't take the time to prepare them in those moments that they're whole, you may miss them in the curves of life. And I didn't want that to happen. So I let them know this is new for me, because I've never been a single mother to 2 little boys before. This is new for me, because I never had a moment where we had family meetings like this, because that was brand new. And I let them know that. But I also let them know that whatever we're going to walk through, we can walk through together. There will be things, if we find that we can't figure it out together, we'll go find somebody else to help us. That was also my way of introducing therapy to my kids, because I knew I had to put them in therapy, because there were things that they were walking through that I did not have the skill set to support them in. So to let them know that if we pull in a third party, talk to them. If I got to take you somewhere and drop you off for a couple hours with these people, talk to them. And in those family meeting moments, I prepared them, because I made the family meeting a safe environment. When you create the safe environment for their soul, you often find that you're creating a safe environment for yours as well. So in the family meetings, I learned more about me. In the family meetings, I learned more about them. In the family meetings, we became a stronger unit in the middle of the chaos that was still swirling around us. So I want you to know that if you have grown children, you can sort of create virtual family meetings still. You may not have to sit down and call it that for them, but have time where you just share. Because another part of the family meeting, with it being face-to-face, we got the chance to communicate, which is the third element. The third pillar is communication. Now, communication, often people think about as verbal, but communication is so much more than verbal. You have your nonverbal communication, have the verbal elements with your communication. There's also written and there's visual. So those are the four elements of communication. If you ever Google it, you'll get a whole bunch of other stuff. But as far as I'm concerned, it boils down to those four things: verbal, written, visual, nonverbal. That's it. Everything else is a subset. Now, because I knew I needed to see my child face to face, because growing up inside of the house when I created the family meetings, him being the oldest, he didn't want to talk a lot because he didn't know what to share. And here's another part that the family meetings did. While you're going through your stuff in divorce, your babies don't know what to share about the divorce. You may have to feed them the words. So part of my communication with those moments was giving them the things that they can say. But a lot of the family meetings occurred with the nonverbal moments, watching how they reacted when I asked certain questions, because I wanted to know what they were feeling. So I asked them questions. How do you feel? What do you think? It's what's happening at school. A lot of it for me was really what's happening at school, because with my oldest child, his behavior did switch and the teachers let me know, because he was pretty much growing up, he was pretty much a really good kid. He didn't have a whole lot of drama, a whole lot of chaos, a whole lot of things that he did. He was a little bit of a nerd like his mom, but he became a little more reserved in school. He didn't want to hang out with a lot of the classmates. And that was something that the teachers also noticed. So I got called to the school to find out what we can do to help him get better. When we had the family meetings, he didn't really want to speak, but his nonverbal clues gave me my cue to pay better attention to my child. Typically, he wasn't the one that needed to be up under me or clingy to me, but after the divorce, he seemed like we went back in time to when he was a toddler, where he had to be right up under me. If you find changes in your child's behavior, the family meeting will give you the chance to clue into those nonverbal cues. And because I had that, I was able to start. I was definitely in the middle of the 3 C's. There comes a time when you will have to decide if you need clarification, connection, or closure about a person to determine how to move forward in the relationship. Some relationships need connecting. Some relationships need clarifying. You will need to take the time to determine what the relationship should be in order for it to be beneficial for both of you. I took the time to write down some things that I think will support you. The free chapter is available for you in the link below. Giving some life skills. That's the fourth element. There are things that you are currently doing to try to get through some of the mess that you're dealing with. Equip your babies so that they can get through some of this as well. Because they, one, don't quite know what's happening. Because while we're going through our stuff, and I'm hoping none of you are using your children as sounding boards for your divorce, they don't quite know what's happening. They know things have been changed. They know that there was some dynamic between the two of you before y'all ever said, we're done. There was a change in the emotional warfare that was happening in their souls in your house. So they knew something was happening. But if you didn't talk to them or give them insight along the way, they still don't know what's going on. They still don't know how to be equipped for it, and they definitely don't know how to deal with it. So family meetings is a way of transferring life skills that they can use to support them so that they are physically okay, mentally okay, emotionally okay, and spiritually okay. If anything that I've shared has resonated with you, then it is time for you to reset. And if you want someone to join you on the journey, feel free to go to my website, TanyaEhood.com. There you can click under the Work With Me tab and see the various ways that we can work with one another. And if you are on YouTube, you can join me live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we can continue the conversation or we can start a new one. In the meantime, this is Tanya E. Hood, walking in my purpose, and I want you to do the same.